Thank you for coming this evening. Although we told you about this webinar quite late, this was my fault. But thank you for coming anyways. So today we're going to speak about planning the lesson, and particularly about planning an online lesson, because normally it has some differences from the regular lesson which we do in the classroom. So this is Nana. Nana is going to help me
Hi.
today. And we will divide our webinar into parts. So first Nana will speak, then I will add my part, and Nana will finish. And after the webinar we will be glad to answer your questions. There is an icon of the chat in the corner of your screen on the right. So if you want to ask some question, you can type it in there. All right? Let's try. Let's try to write okay if you understand me with the chat. Yay, all right, it's working. Okay. That's it. So we can start. Nana, please.
Okay, can you please
Yeah, I
show
will.
the presentation?
I will.
Start with the presentation. Okay. So, hello once again. Hello everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And as Marina has mentioned, we are going to talk about lesson planning. So, before we get started, my first question to all of you is, how would you define a lesson plan? So I have several options for you. So do you think a lesson plan is most like an instruction leaflet, a photograph, a story, a roadmap, a computer program, a series of road signs, a written summary, or something else? So, in your opinion, what a lesson plan is most like? You can type in the chat your answers. I would be glad to take a look.
Because personally, I think that lesson planning is more like some written summary, maybe. This is what I was taught at the university. But maybe there are some modern lesson plans, I don't know.
Okay, I see someone chose number 4, a roadmap. Someone chose number 6, a series of road signs. Number 3, a story. Number 4, a roadmap. Okay. Anyone else?
Those are drivers. Okay. A roadmap is for drivers.
So, I wish I could say that there are no right or wrong answers, but actually there are. So, a lesson plan is a set of notes that helps us through what we're going to teach and how we're going to teach that. So that is why a lesson plan is most probably a roadmap, or you can say that it is a series of road signs. Why is it a roadmap? Simply because when we plan a lesson, we need to know where we start and where we want to get. So what do we want to achieve by the end of the class? And that is why we need a plan to get from point A to point B. So now we know that planning a lesson is important, and to have a lesson plan, it is important. And my next question to you is, in your opinion, what are the components of a lesson plan? What should we keep in mind when we plan a lesson? What do we need to include in the lesson? I see someone is typing. So again, what are the components of a lesson plan? Warm up, lesson itself, cool down. Okay, that's right. What else? Any other answers? Games for sure. Yes, games, like we consider a game as one of the activity that we can include in the lesson. Questions concerning the few plans for learning languages. Okay, again, this is more like of an activity that you include in your lesson plan. All activities that teacher plans to use. Okay, that's right. So, you were absolutely right, mentioning warm up, lesson itself, and cool down as the components of a lesson plan. But there are some more things that we need, or some more information that we need to keep in mind when we plan our lesson. So, and I put together like all this information, and I've created a certain template that can help us when we can plan a lesson. So this template has two parts. The first part includes like this information about your students or your student. So it includes the following points: the date of the lesson, time. By time, I mean the duration of the lesson, name of the student and level, topic of the lesson, so let's say clothes or fashion or I don't know, animals, aim of the lesson, about that we're going to be talking a bit later, and material. So what materials are you going to use? A book, supplementary materials, I don't know, something, visual aids, etc. So this is the first part of this template. And the second part of the template includes actually the stages of the lesson, the parts of the lesson, which are, as one of you has mentioned, warm up or lead-in, the main part of the lesson, the cool down. And I have also added like two, in my opinion, important things: homework, so what you're going to give your student as a homework. And after the lesson is over, you can take a look at the lesson and I don't know, try to think about what worked, what didn't work, so to sum it up and just to see, to give a evaluation. Yes, to write a certain evaluation. So I think that this template is pretty useful because you can use it every time, and that means that you have all the information at one place. That means that it gives you a sense of structure, and you actually know what you're going to be doing during your class. So, yes, this is the first part. And Marina?
Okay. And I would like mostly to speak about some classic structure of the lesson, which we were taught about at the university, and how this could work with online lessons. As most of us probably know, that in the classic variant, the lesson structure looks like this. So first it starts with saying hello and warm up, or you can call it lead in. Then usually goes some part of a revision of something you studied during your previous class. After that goes homework check. This is what we normally do in the classroom, but not usually done during online lessons. Then goes presentation of the new material, after that some practice of that material, and finally finishing the lesson. And of course we know, when speaking about practice, practice should include exercises for developing all four language skills like speaking, listening, reading, and writing. That is what usually what is usually said in the books and so on. So before I start going through all these stages, I want to give you some very, very important tip which concerns online lessons. As we normally use Skype at the moment, or maybe some other messengers or video chat, sometimes when the teacher is screen sharing with the student is unable to see the teacher, and you never can guess it before the lesson. So when you're screen sharing, what is best to do is to ask the student whether you can see me. And in case not, it's very, very important not to forget to switch from screen sharing back to the teacher's video, to talk to each other, to look into the eyes of each other, and so on. And then you can start screen sharing again. So normally what I do with little children, I do 2 minutes of screen sharing and 2 minutes of talking to each other, and then back. Because even if the student is able to see you during screen sharing, always looking inside in the book is not very, very fun. So you will lose the contact with your students so very quickly. So don't forget to switch here and there, and of course to build the activities of your lesson this way, so that you will be able to switch from the video to screen sharing often. All right, so let's go through all the classic. Oh, I have one one point without animation. Okay, let's go through all the classic stages of the lesson. As Nana said, usually we start with saying hello and warm up, and this is really important. And what is important, in my opinion, is to have some special routine which you can use during this stage. For example, what I mean, when I was teaching at school, and when I remember I was a student, we had some routine warm up. So the teacher was asking, like, what day is it today? What month is it now? Who's on duty today? Who's present today? No matter. We had a list of some routine questions which we knew beforehand. And in this way, even the weakest students could participate because they knew what would be asked, so they knew beforehand what they would answer. So that would make them confident during the lesson, because the routine was important for them. And as for an online class, routine is also important. But of course, asking like, what day is it today? What month is it now? This is not very good for an online lesson. So what do I suggest? What I usually do with my students, I usually ask them, how are you? What are you doing now? What did you do this morning? Well, I build the questions depending on the level of the student, but these questions are usually repeated from class to class, and this gives some confidence to my student. Because from the whole start of the lesson, he's confident about what he can answer. That's it. So the next, what we can use during warm-up is games. My favorite game to warm up is an emotion game. So what I usually do, I practice emotions with my student. How are you? Happy? And the student repeats my gestures and the words. Sad, good, bad, and so on. And this mime game makes the student feel more friendly with you. Especially this works with your first trial lessons, when you have to set up some friendly relationships with your student. And the next, what is good to use is puppets or toys. For example, what I usually do when my student is not really willing to talk to me as to some teacher, especially during trials, I move away from the screen and I show my puppet and I do like this, hello. Hello, how are you? Nana, hello. Hello.
Hi.
And in
Hello.
this way, the student, it is easier for the student to answer and to talk to the puppet than to the teacher, especially if the student is shy. So such toys really help during the warm-up. After that comes the revision point. Nana suggested to combine this together with the warm-up. Yes, this is absolutely possible for online lessons, because what we usually do during revision, we have to revise some material we have already studied. For example, if today I am going to study the rooms of the house, so normally I would revise the furniture with my student. So I think that these activities can work for the warm-up too. What we can do, we can use flashcards like look and say, or we can use toys, look and repeat, look and say, or we can even use real objects. For example, what's this? It's a phone. So these activities are really good for revision, to revise the vocabulary which we will need during this lesson. And another option which I also like to use is board games. On the next slide here you can see a board game which I took from one of my students' books which they use at school. But I like this board game because it enabled me to revise some vocabulary. So what do? I usually do like this. I do not share the whole slide. I open the presentation so that I can move some elements here. So I just made two circles just to represent the figures on the board game. And what I use, what do we do during this game? We have to roll the dice and to move. And where you are, you have either to say what is on the picture or to answer some question. So you can just move these things around the board for your student. And to roll the dice, you can use some special online services like this one. Roll the dice online. I just share my screen with my student, as now I'm doing to you. I click roll the dice. Okay, 5. So I move 5. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, a bit to the right. 4, 5. And then I do the same to my student. And board games can be for very, very different topics. If you even Google like board game furniture or board game present continuous, you will have a lot of options. And this is really fun for the student and helps to warm up, okay, as well. So the next thing we have is homework check. As I already said, this is pretty optional for online lessons because some students are willing to have homework, some are not. And of course, if you dedicate too much time during your lesson to check the homework, so normally you would do the same things which the student has already done before the lesson. So this is not very good and this is boring. But some parents really insist on homeworks. They insist on grammar exercises as homework. So what you need to do is to agree the question of homework with the parents. And only after that you can include this stage into your lesson. And if you really need homework with the student, what I suggest is that the student can write his homework, for example, do some exercise or whatever, and then the student just takes a photo of his homework and sends to you before the lesson. And you can just check it with some, I don't know, paint software just to cross out the mistakes and everything, and to send it back to the student before the lesson, not to spend too much time checking it during those 30 minutes of your lesson. The next stage is presentation of the new material. This is one of the top important things during your lesson. I'm sorry, this is Skype. So how can you present the new material? You can use absolutely different things, and actually this topic is worth of another webinar. But what is important is to make the presentation vivid. How can you present the material? You can use toys, games, flashcards, again the same things which you do use with your revision, right? Any puppets, any flashcards, whatever. But or even comics and videos, but what is top important? To make it vivid and fun, not boring. Then comes practice. What is important for online lessons? During online lessons, I mean the percent of time which we dedicate to different skills is a bit different from the one which is in the classroom. For online lessons, speaking has the top priority, and normally the student should speak during 50% of time of the lesson. I know that in some other online schools there is even special software which enables the administration to count how much time of the lesson did the student speak. That's interesting. But of course, as our students are really small, we cannot make them speak really 50% of time. But what I'm trying to say, try to make your students speak as much as possible. The next comes listening. This is the second priority. Well, first of all, the student already develops listening skills when he's listening to your questions, when he's listening to the teacher. Also, there are some listening exercises in our Kids Box book. This doesn't mean that you have to do them all, but at least some of them, right? The next comes reading. We do not do a lot of reading during our classes. Maybe just read some comics or very short stories. And even if you do some exercises, you already have enough of reading while reading the task of the exercise. So please do not spend too much time on that. And writing is the last on the list. we do not spend much time, and we do not dedicate much attention to developing our writing skills. Normally, this is maybe one brief exercise for a couple of minutes, just up to 5 minutes. But a lot of teachers wonder how can they organize writing during their online lessons. And here are some of my tips. I already described such trick to write and take a photo and to send to your teacher so that the teacher can check it before the lesson or after the lesson. Another trick is to type. Normally the children who are elder than 9 years old, they're pretty able to type. They can type either in Skype chat or in our video chat, anywhere. They can do it pretty well. Of course, they need a little bit of time to study the keyboard in English language, but after a while they will be doing that quite fast. Also, you can use online whiteboards to put into your lessons. I have a special article in our library. If you come into your teacher's profile and click library, you will see the article called Online Whiteboards, where I explain how to use them. But just to say it briefly, an online whiteboard is such a space where you and your student can draw or write at the same time. So if your student cannot type, he can just use the drawing tool maybe to write some separate letters or words. And the last, as I already said, is Skype chat. Okay. And the last is finishing the lesson. I remember I had a teacher at the university, and she used to say that if you do not finish your lesson properly, then count that you didn't have this lesson. This is very important to finish the lesson, properly. I'm sorry for repeating. What I usually do during my final part of the lesson is quick revision. You can also call it cool down. The ending part, the lesson evaluation was mentioned by Nana. I just go through all the material which we had during the lesson, all new material, and revise it very quickly. I can use different games for it. I can use pictures again, maybe just look through some words, whatever. But it's top important to revise what you did during the lesson at the end of it. This is a good question, whether you need to have some routine ending of the lesson. Probably that works with young kids. At the moment, I'm developing the lessons for our platform, and for young kids, I put in a song about about goodbye. I put in a goodbye song. Probably such routine songs would work fine with young students, like bye bye, goodbye. They will be really happy to sing at the end of the lesson. That's it. Do you have any questions about this part of our webinar? Okay, I see someone is typing. That's it. Okay. Well, I know I was speaking too much and too fast. But okay, I will send you the link to this presentation to revise. Does it take much time to have that game at the beginning? Well, I played that game I had 2 students. I have twins. It took us around like 5 minutes. Well, it depends on the rules which you use, because if you just throw the dice and go through the board, no matter who wins, who comes first to the finish, that's really quick. But if you want to help your students to win, I usually invent some additional rules to help them move to the end of the board faster than me, I mean. So yes, that could take more time, usually around 5, 6, up to 10 minutes, depending on the size. For what age is it suitable? Well, board games are really, really different, because some of them have only pictures, no text. So as the teacher is moving, how do you call it? I don't remember. Fishka, da? These things around the board. And as the teacher is throwing the dice, so that doesn't require much skills, and it can even suit the younger students. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the question. Okay. Okay, let's do one more. Guest is typing. Well, alongside with board games, I really advised you to buy some puppets. Personally, I bought this one from IKEA. They love it. Okay, if the student needs a lot of reading, can we spend a whole lesson for reading a story and doing the activities? Well, actually, I'm not sure that the parents would be happy with that. But if this is the idea coming from the parents, then sure, all right. By the way, I have a very good course for reading. I can share it on Google Drive. I never thought about it. This is also from Cambridge. It is called Story Fun. Story Fun for starters, movers, and flyers. And the whole course, it consists of a story, and after the story there are a bunch of exercises for listening, reading, writing, whatever. So I think this could do, but the story shouldn't be very, very long, because normally the stories are starting from 2 pages up to 4. I think that 4 pages would be too much. You have to divide this into 2 lessons. So first, what I'm trying to say, you have to agree this with the parent, because if this is only your idea and you want to just develop the reading skills of the student, well, make sure that this is not only reading. Make sure you insert a lot of speaking. Maybe just read a part of the text and speak about it, something like this. Okay, thank you. So, Nana, you could proceed to your final part. Nana is going to tell us some tips about planning a lesson, some quick things you can remember.
Yes, I would like to share with you 5 tips, and
Oh,
some of the
sorry.
tips are really
I stopped sharing.
that's fine. Some of them are, I think, are very important, especially the first one that I'm going to share. But I will start with a question. So let's say you have a template and you're about to start filling your template with the content. So we have some ideas about your lesson, about your upcoming lesson. But actually, so what goes first? What should you consider first before actually starting writing a lesson plan and filling it with content? So what is the first step? Any ideas?
Oh.
Someone is typing.
Hey. I know that those teachers who already worked at school know the answer for this question really well.
Okay, can you repeat the question for sure? So what is the first thing that you need to consider before actually starting writing a lesson plan, before filling the lesson plan with content, before thinking about a warm-up for the main part of the lesson and the cool down? So what is the first thing that you need to decide? Previous lesson evaluation. Okay, anything else? Any other ideas? The level of the language. Okay, this is one thing to take into consideration for sure. But what else? What is so very important? Students' wishes. Yes, that is also one thing to take into consideration. Think about the goal of the lesson. That's right.
Yay!
Exactly. Yes. So the first and I think the most important tip is to identify and select your aims. Aims describe what we want learners to learn or what we want them to do or to do better at the end of our class. So in order for us to identify the aim, we need to ask ourselves two key questions. So what do my students already know, and what do they need to learn? So what do I want them to learn and to be able to do by the end of the class? So aim is number one. So my next question to you is, what do you think? How many, a bit bad. So how many aims should be there in your lesson plan? How many aims should be there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
3.
Okay, so 3 is a bit too much. So you should have one main aim of your lesson. Yeah, so let's say you're going to work on, I don't know, for example, with some teens or with older children, you're going to work on present simple. So present simple, you're going to work on present simple. So how would you formulate the aim? So what is the aim of your class, of your lesson? You're going to introduce present simple, so how would you put it as an aim? No one is saying. So my point is that aim should be specific. It shouldn't be just too broad. Like, as I said, introduce present simple. You should put it like this. Introduce positive and affirmative and negative forms of present simple, and for my student to be able to use these forms while talking about daily routine. So be more, yes. So be more specific. So this is number one. Identify and select aims. So tip number 2 is smooth transitions from one activity to another. What I mean by that is that, for example, you finished one activity, don't jump into the other by saying, okay, we've done this and now let's do this. No. So try to finish the first activity and start the other activity smoothly, so that your student isn't even aware that you're actually going from one activity to the other. Example, again, let's say that you have finished topic family, and you're talking about family members, etc., and you would like to introduce new topic, which is animals. So how would you get from the topic family to the topic animals smoothly? How would you do that? What are your ideas? Do you have pets at your place? Okay. Does your family own a pet? Ask about. To show the family of animals. Oh, that's a great idea. Have you been to a zoo? Okay. So yes. For example, if you're talking about what's your favorite animal? So let's say you're talking about family and family members, and if you ask right away what's your favorite animal and have you been to a zoo, it's a bit abrupt. It's not that smooth. So what can you do is, yes, to show the family, a picture of the family of animals. That's a great idea. Or you can show a picture of a family, and for example, this family has a pet. So the student is talking about the family and describing a picture, and you're like, oh, look, they have a pet. Is it a cat? Oh, it is a cat. And do you have a cat? The student says, no, I don't. Oh, I don't have a cat either. I have a dog. So a picture of a dog. Do you have a dog? No. So do you like cats or dogs? And from here you start introducing animals. So this is my tip number 2, smooth transitions. So the third tip I would like to give you is variety of activities. Since we teach online, especially since we teach kids, it is very important to have different activities in the classroom. Why is that important? Because without the variety, your lesson can become a bit boring, and your students can lose interest. and we don't want that. And it is hard to grab attention of, especially of little kids and of young learners. So again, keep in mind that your activities should be different. For example, you start a lesson, warm up, and you have a stirrer. So you move around. And after that, you can, I don't know, for example, share your screen. You can show a picture and your student describes the picture. You can ask some additional questions and then you switch back to you and you, I don't know, can show another picture here and then switch back to share your screen back and you read a small text and then you switch back to you and you ask the student to mind the text that you have just read. So try to keep it to move and to add some action to your lesson. So this way, I'm sure that your students would stay involved and will stay focused. So the next tip I would like to give you is to think about warm-ups and cool-downs. They are very important. It is very important to start a lesson on the right foot. So Marina has already mentioned which activities can you use as warm-ups, right? And my question to you is, what do you think? How much time should we spend on warm-ups? How many, I don't know, minutes? 5 minutes max, 3, 4. Okay. 2, 3, 3, 5. Yes, that's right. Of course, it depends on the lesson. So of course, if we have like a 1 hour lesson, we can spend 5 to maybe 7 minutes or up to 10 minutes on the warm up. But if we have like a 30 minute lesson, then of course like 5 minutes max. That's for sure. So we need to don't forget to have a warm up and to prepare your students for the lesson itself. And as for the cool downs, again, Marina has already mentioned that it is very important to finish the lesson correctly. Otherwise, your students will be like, okay, what was that? What have we done? So cool downs are very important. And again, try to like have at least like 5 minute revision of what you have done during your class, so that your student has this in the students have this in their minds, like for sure. And my last tip is, yes, always have an extra activity planned in case you finish earlier. Sometimes it happens that we finish like, again, we have a 1 hour class and we finish 10 minutes earlier. Oh my God, what to do? In that case, always have an extra activity, some game, some flashcards to show and to discuss. Or you can, for example, if you don't have any of those, you can ask your students, oh, what are you going to do or after the class, and somehow talk about this. So yes, it is very important to have an extra activity. Otherwise, the students will have the impression that you haven't prepared properly for the class. And we certainly don't want that. We want to be real professionals.
Yeah.
So this is it.
And as a methodologist, I'm sorry, I could add one very important notice, because I know some teachers, of course, no one of you, who finished the class 5 minutes earlier because they have already ended all of the activities. That's not proper.
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions? You could type
yes,
them
any
in
questions?
the chat. Yes, sure.
Yes.
We will make the recording, and when you open your profile, there is some information about you. Then goes your schedule with these green slots. Under the schedule, we added some widget which shows you the 3 latest news. So our webinar will appear there. Number 1, latest news. And of course, I will attach the presentation there. All right. Thank you for coming. Ideas of cool downs, how to revise. Well, uh, what do I usually do? I prepare this as a kind of an activity. Maybe I use some pictures from the book, which we already have discussed, but I imagine some new activity for them. I just go through all the materials. I try to revise the words. I try to revise the construction. Usually, this goes as another activity with me, but just for some interesting things. Normally, this is one and the same which you use for warm ups, but in some other context, as to revision. For example, if in the beginning of the lesson you showed the flashcards and you're asked to look and repeat, like mirror, mirror, and so on. So by the end of the lesson, I would show this mirror and ask like, "What's this? Like, where you can see this? Aha, in the bathroom," and just not to focus on the words themselves, but just to have something to discuss, a picture or something.
And I
Uh,
have something to add.
mhm.
Since it's a cool down, it has to be, it doesn't have to, of course, you don't introduce anything new, so you revise. And you revise it in a form of a game. So, because they are already tired and they want to have some fun. So, for example, this could be a guess what game. For example, you have studied topic food and, what I practiced, I had this game. I guessed, I don't know, I imagined some food, I don't know, cereal or some fruit or some vegetable, and my student or vice versa, or my student thinks of some food, and I ask him or her questions. Is it a fruit? Is it a vegetable? Do we eat this for breakfast? Do we eat this for dinner? Is it green? Is it round? And it can go both ways. So first you, then your student takes turn, or you can go one round or two rounds depending on the time. So it's
And
sort of a
as for
game.
younger students, I like this game. Like, for example, we are studying the colors. So, just what colors can you see? Red, orange, and green. Then close your eyes. And then I take one pencil away. What is missing? So, what is missing is a very, very cool game for that.
Yeah.
Um, what how often about these webinars? Well, normally we planned to make them once in 2 weeks, but then something happened and it took quite long time between the first and the second webinar. This is our second webinar ever, but I hope that this would be like once in 2 weeks. We will try at least. What do you think about online games connected to the lesson, vocabulary, or grammar? Well, online games can be different. For example, I know
Mhm.
some very, very cool website. I will just show my screen to you and go to this website. It is called Learning Apps. So these apps and these games are quite cool for teaching. For example, you type in here like fruit, and then you pick up a random game for that, and you can just give the link to this game for your student, and the student can play it. So what I mean that this kind of online games is cool, yes, but if you use some online games like, I don't know, some, well, games which do not involve the vocabulary, probably this would distract your students, some cars or something like this. So I'm always for games, but for games which are about education, which are educational. Okay, thank you. Oh, maybe someone wants this website, learning apps. So what I usually do, I give the link to the student, and then the student opens this game on his screen. I ask the student to share his screen to me, and then I'm just looking what he's doing. There are different games, kind of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or Match the Word and the Picture, or even labeling the picture, or something else. There are about 10 different types of games there. You can even create your own on this resource. Um, and I even once saw an example of a teacher who played Minecraft together with the student on some server. Yeah, that was fun, but it takes really much effort from the teacher to build up the environment of the game to teach something. All right. Thank you for your questions and for coming. Thanks. All right, so yeah, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask them. If not, then I remind you that I will attach the recording of this webinar and all the links to the presentation and to the resources, and you will see them under your schedule in your profile. Okay, one student proposed me to play Minecraft. Did you agree? No? Yes, no, not yet.
Not yet.
That's fine. By the way, some students like Lego, and if you type in lego.com, their official resource, there are some online games as well, which you can use during your lessons. Very simple ones, which do not like distract the student, like Minecraft. And you can try them. Lego.com, and there are different kinds of games for the ones who like Lego. By the way, I just remembered one website which I liked so much. It's called Starfall. Just try to Google for it. Starfall. I'm not sure. Starfall.com probably. There are also some online games on this website. You will like it really. It's cool for young learners. But we were talking about the games. There are some games like a frog jumping from leaf to leaf and eating words or something else. That's it. Okay, thank you for coming today. I hope that we will have more webinars soon. And have a nice evening, or probably night for some teachers who live far. Come next time. If you have any questions, remember that I'm always